When it comes to things most people liked or still like since they were children, probably the biggest thing to come up alongside cars and superheroes if we're looking at a male demographic are dinosaurs. Now, dinosaurs are very interesting when it comes to the mind of a child because not only are these guys cool lizards that have traits and abilities that most can only imagine, but unlike superheroes, these guys actually existed for millions of years in real life and can be proven to have existed. There are entire fields in science dedicated to unearthing the remains of these creatures, some of these fossilized remains being displayed in museums all over the globe, while others are stored in containers in labs for science's eyes only. And what's crazy about all of this is that they are still discovering new things about dinosaurs out in the field. It's only natural for a kid to be fascinated by something like that, and because of this, businesses would do their damnedest to capitalize on this all over the world, especially kid franchises. If you think trend chasing is already crazy, you have no idea how many franchises have airdropped dinosaurs into their worlds just for monetary reasons, even if that franchise has absolutely nothing to do with them. So it's quite obvious that dinosaurs would make an appearance within Skylanders itself because Skylanders was owned by Activision and Activision likes money. Because of this, Skylanders would make a couple of dinosaur-based or inspired Skylanders over the years, and after doing a little bit of research, I was able to find a few that I would be able to talk about today. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at these Skylanders and figure out where they came from and how they became Skylanders. So with that out the way, let's get started. Now, interestingly enough, when it comes to all the dinosaur Skylanders, the first one that came to mind almost every single time for me is Dino Ring. Not only because he's the first dinosaur Skylander, but he's also another member of the Forgotten Eight, and I'm kinda unsurprised that he is one. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Out of 32 different Skylanders, it's pretty obvious that some of them would be forgotten and only the most popular would return. But even out of the members from the Forgotten Eight, he's probably the most forgettable design-wise. So with all of that said, let's see if his backstory makes up for this. Interestingly enough, Dino Ring isn't from Skylands. In actuality, he's from a completely different world, and even though we don't know exactly which one he's from, we do know that he was part of a tribe of dinosaur hunters. He would trade for years to use his tribe's weapons, earthen boomerangs, and soon he would be the first to twirl the legendary twin boomerangs and be at the top of his tribe. And even though life was probably pretty good, fate, or the fate of multiple realities, had different plans for him. One night, while he was sleeping, a portal would appear under his bed and drag him to Skylands, where he would come face to face with a group of sinister wizards. Turns out this was all another Star Strike incident where someone was trying to perform a spell but botched it up. But before the wizards could even react, Dino Ring would pull out his boomerangs and get to work, blasting them all to the outlets before they could say boo. Unsure of how he even got to Skylands, he would begin to explore it for the fabled twin diamond boomerangs, and as he was searching for them, he would eventually run into Eon, who would promptly make him a Skylander. And even though we don't know if he wants to go home or not, we still know that he's keeping an eye out for the diamond boomerangs, believing that they could hold a clue to his greater destiny. Now, the biggest thing that I want to talk about when it comes to the story is the twin diamond boomerangs, because I wonder if the boomerangs are related to the reason he was brought to Skylands in some way. Remember, he had his own legendary boomerangs on him when the portal opened under his bed, and we do know that the wizard's spell went awry. So what if they were trying to summon the diamond boomerangs, but accidentally summoned the legendary ones? I tried digging into this a little further, but as of writing this video, the high archives are down because of a hack apparently, and I'm not exactly sure where they're going to be back up. There's also that weird thing again where the two stories that I got, the ones I grabbed from the wiki, are drastically different from each other. One of them not even mentioning the wizards at all, but from what I can tell, there aren't any major inconsistencies, so I tried blending them together. The last thing that I want to ask is, when did he become aware of the diamond boomerangs? That's like the one thing that's never really explained in the story. Like, did he hear about it from someone else in Skylands, or were his people aware of Skylands and told stories about how this was the home of the items, and that's how he figured it out? But with all of that said and done, I think it's about time that we get into the next Skylander of today. Dynamite! Now, when it comes to all the Skylanders I'm talking about today, I think that Chopper is the one that kinda screws with me the most, and that's because I can't decide whether I like him or not. On one hand, he's literally just a T-Rex wearing helicopter propellers, but on the other hand, there's a lot of other things going on with him as well. But as I was digging into why this thing even exists, I would learn about how insane of a backstory he has outside of the game's universe. So before you get into the thick of it, let's do some background work. Apparently, he has his roots all the way back in Giants when Nat Lowe asked Wei Wang if he could make a dinosaur Skylander for the tech element, and being a fan of dinosaurs, Wei would get to work. But there would be a multitude of problems, the main two being that he was too big horizontally and he couldn't fit in the packaging, and because of that, he was scrapped. Fast forward to Trap Team, and Wei would try making a dinosaur Skylander again, this time making him as stubby as possible, but once again, another problem would rear its ugly head. The cannon that he had in his first design just didn't really flow well, so he would change the design around until he eventually got what we have now. So with that out the way, let's take a look at his backstory and see what we can learn. Growing up, Chopper was much smaller than the rest of the dinosaurs that he grew around, but he didn't really care that much and had some pretty big ideas. Ahead of the annual hunting competition that was meant to honor the idol of the village, Rourke Tunga, I think, Chopper spent weeks building a Gyro Dino exosuit, and when the competition began, it was an absolute slaughter. He would fire his missiles and chomp down on anything and everything in his path, and he was on the verge of winning until the nearby volcano suddenly erupted, flooding the village with lava and trapping many of his people. But he would be able to carry every single person there to safety, even saving the village's idol, and because of this, he was made a Skylander. But once again, this is not where his story ends. He would be on the Dread Yacht when Flynn was transporting the minis to Skylanders Academy, and during this, Chaos was impersonating Weruptor, who would mind control Flynn into jumping off his own ship. Thankfully, Chopper would notice and save him just in time, but they would still crash land at the Boney Islands, and after a series of events, i.e. Flynn crashing into a museum, a lore dump about the first game, and Flynn knocking his senses back into himself through a dinosaur skull, he would explain to Chopper what happened to him, and after the two came across an Archean copter, or Autogyro, I don't exactly know what to call it, they would haul back to the Academy to warn everyone. On the way back, the two were attacked by a group of troll bombers, but they are saved by Tessa, Callie, the actual Weruptor, and Wildfire. And when the group arrived at the Academy, Chaos was already being driven out by Food Fight, and that's pretty much where things end for him. Now, what's crazy about this backstory is that Chopper brought a goddamn exosuit with rockets to a hunting competition. Like, what the hell did you have to hunt where he would think that, yeah, I'm gonna need these rockets just in case? All that really does is make me wonder what the hunting competition was actually like. Were they actually hunting these animals? Because I know Skylander's a little iffy on killing and stuff, but if that's the case, he's one of the few Skylanders that I've encountered who actually has a confirmed body count that isn't speculation. But with that out the way, let's get into the last Skylander of today. Now, as I was researching Tri-Tip, I think the most interesting thing about him is that he's the only one who isn't just a dinosaur. He actually has a specific species, and according to his story, he's apparently a Triceratops, which is way too damn specific. So before we get into that, let's talk about his backstory and see what we can learn. Before he was a sensei, Tri-Tip wandered Skylands in the search of the mystical warping walnut tree, which was rumored to never be in the same place long before warping to another location. After a few long years of searching for it, he would eventually find the tree and snag a golden walnut before it disappeared again. Now, the reason he wanted to find this tree is because the walnuts were said to reveal the life purpose of a person who could open the walnut, but no matter how hard he hit the walnut with his head, he couldn't even crack it. Realizing that only a weapon of immense power could crack the magical shell, and not his head, Tri-Tip forged a mighty mace and trained with the greatest warriors to become the ultimate master of smashing things, eventually passing his teachings down to his students. When he was ready to smash the walnut, he had realized that the walnut had already showed him what his identity was supposed to be: become a protector of Skylands, and he would eventually give his walnut to one of his students before becoming a sensei. Now, what's interesting about this is that his student actually makes an appearance in a book called Try and Try Again, and what's crazy to me is that this is the first time that I've even heard about these books, but at the moment, I cannot find them anywhere at all. But from what I can see, he's also a Triceratops. Alright, it's time to rip the band-aid off. Now, what this kind of implies to me is that portals have existed since the dinosaurs, and they somehow got to Skylands, which could have happened at literally any time between millions of years, and they somehow evolved from this to this. This pretty much led me on a wild goose chase throughout the wiki since, once again, the archives are down, and I eventually found this in the Skyland section of the wiki. Now, I was losing my mind for a couple minutes thinking that this would solve literally everything for what's going on with Skylands and its species, but then I realized these islands don't exist and instead exist on the Earth in Crash Bandicoot. And after a little bit of digging, I'm kind of conflicted if this is our Earth we're talking about, or if this is an alternate Earth, since I don't know much about the Crash lore, but for now we're just gonna have to leave that with the Crash stuff whenever I cover it. So with that out the way, thank you for watching. Like always, hit the subscribe button if you enjoy content like this, share this around so I can grow as a channel, leave some comments down below to make the algorithm happy, and I will see you all in the next one.